All right. Hey, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Take two. All right. So if you were one of the people who were fortunate enough earlier today to see my training with no volume, welcome back. Let's try it again. All right. So today what I want to do is just talk a little bit about rehabbing, right? And how you can mitigate some of the risk that you face when you're rehabbing property. So one of the really popular strategies out there for, cash flow is doing the BRRRR strategy, right? You buy it, you renovate it, you rent it, and you refinance it. Well, the renovating part of it is kind of a big deal. And when we talk about renovating, first of all, that's something that Jennifer and I specialize in. Almost every property that we do has some kind of renovation, and oftentimes a lot of renovation. Now, we are not flying out to the property and grabbing a tool belt and grabbing a hammer and making it happen, right? We are at our home in San Diego, and we are coordinating teams as the CEOs of our company. We are coordinating teams in other markets to get things done. And that's what we're talking about when we talk about rehabbing, not doing it on your own. All right. So there's certain things that you can do that will help to mitigate the risk of losing money. Because one of the things that people are oftentimes afraid of when it comes to doing remote investing is, well, how am I going to keep an eye on the contractors? And how do I stay safe in doing that? So this is what I wanted to share with you, some thoughts on that. So a couple of things. When you are renovating property, one of the things that you're doing is you're getting a scope of work. A scope of work is simply a list of all the different things you're going to be doing to the property. And that is going to come from the contractor, or that's something you guys are going to agree upon. These are all the things we're going to be doing. All right, so that's the first thing. The next thing is we're asking for a draw schedule. So a draw schedule takes that list, that scope of work, and it breaks it out into weeks. Let's say it's going to be a 6-week project. Breaks it out into weeks 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So, in week 1, you might have these 3 things. Week 2, you might have these 3. Week 3, these 3 things. And although the projects rarely go that exact way, it does give you an idea of the order in which things should be going. And if someone's too far off track, you should have an idea, because by week 3, these 9 things should be done. All right. And so sometimes it might be you might have some things done from week 4 or 5 that got done in week 2, just because somebody was available and it got done. But it at least gives you an idea. So that helps you plan financially. All right. So I'm just laying some foundation to talk about how we ultimately mitigate risk. But planning is a big deal. Like just being able to go in and say, this is the expectation, and make sure that we're all in agreement on it. The other thing we're going to be doing is, and I'm going to talk specifics in just a minute, but I want to back up a little bit. When we do rehab projects, we always use licensed, experienced general contractors, right, for our BRRRR strategy, or for flipping property, right? And why do we do that? And here's the thing: not in all markets. Let me think of a different way to say this. It is not available in every market to have a licensed GC, because some markets don't have a GC license. So I recognize that. So if you happen to be operating one of those markets, I understand that there's an exception. I've literally been all over the United States and every different market, not necessarily physically, but training or operating ourselves in our own business. So I recognize there are some exceptions. And if that's the case, if there is no GC license, then you just need to do a really good job vetting that contractor as best you can, because you don't have that. But why is it? Like, why do I even care about the GC having a license? Does it really matter? From an experience standpoint, not necessarily. Somebody can have just as much experience and just as much talent with or without a license. The reason I want the GC to have a license is that there's something to lose. So if they went through the trouble to get their license, chances are that's part of what they use to build their business. It's a selling point, right, for people to hire them, having a GC license. So if they're working with me on a project and they do something really egregious and I have to go report it to the board of contractors, and they stand a chance of having their license suspended or revoked, they have something to lose. And not that it's the end all be all, but it's just another step in the process to help tie in the success of the contractor with the success of you. Like, everybody wants to have the same thing. The last thing they want to have is their license revoked. And the last thing you want to have is a contractor who rips you off, making you go after their license, right? So it just creates another layer of protection. So always licensed GCs. Now, when you're actually in the project, there's certain things that you can do to reduce financial risk. Because one of the things people, if you have any experience or you know someone who's experienced in real estate, who's done rehabbing, they could probably tell you that at some point they got ripped off for money. And if you ask the details of it, nearly every time what it comes down to is the investor, and trust me, we've done this ourselves. This is why I can very knowledgeably speak to you about it. The investor sent money to the contractor prior to actually work being done. And it's a normal thing in real estate or in construction to do that, right? Because the contractor might say, well, I need 50% up front. Well, if they're coming into your home to do a kitchen and you really don't have anything to lose by not paying them, then, you know, I can understand the contractor asking for money up front, right? Because you're not trying to sell your house. But when you're doing a rehab project and you're going to need to refinance it or sell it, the last thing you're going to want in there is a lien on the property. So you do have something to lose if you don't pay them. So, but if you pay any money up front to the contractor, whatever money you've paid out to the GC, that money is at risk, because unless they've done work, they could take the money and run. Now, are they going to? Hopefully not. If they're licensed, really hopefully not, because they really have something to lose, but that is the money you're putting at risk. So how do you operate in a way that reduces the risk of them getting money from you and then them taking off? Right. So the primary way to reduce that risk is only pay for work that's actually been done. So how is that going to work as far as the conversation with the realtor, right? Or with the contractor? Because you've probably had conversations before and maybe it feels a little bit awkward, but frankly, I'd rather feel awkward than lose $20,000. So is it awkward? Maybe, but whatever. It's expensive if it's not awkward. So let it be awkward a little bit. But after you've done it a few times, it is what it is. You can always blame it on your partner, you blame it on your board of directors, like our organization doesn't allow us to pay in advance. That being said, like if the contractor does work, I'll tell them, like, look, I'll pay you weekly if you need that. And I will pay you very timely, but I can't pay you in advance for work. That'd be like me showing up on Monday to work and being like, hey, it's Monday, I want to get paid for this week, but I haven't done the work yet. Like, what employer on earth does that? None. But with GCs, they oftentimes expect that. Well, I want 30% up front. No. You know, I want 50% up front. No. But I don't just say no. I say, well, you know, our organization doesn't allow for that. But here's what we can do. I'm happy to pay you every week, whatever day you want. I just need to know in advance what's going to be done, because we're going to have somebody come out and inspect the work. Like that's a non-negotiable. We always do it. And you can tell them that. I will tell you, most investors do not do that extra step. They either don't think to do it, or they don't want to spend an extra $100 having an inspector go out and make sure the work is done. But saving that $100 costs you thousands potentially, because you might pay for work and it's not done, or it's not done correctly, right? And then you go to sell the property, refinance the property, or someone moves in and now there's some kind of issue and the contractor's long gone. They have no more incentive to fix it. When the incentive is, well, if you want to be paid for the work being done and done correctly, then you got to make the adjustment, you got to make the repair. So the leverage point is before you've paid them. Anyway, so let's say that we agree with our contractor that we're going to do payment every Friday, right? So let's say on Wednesday of each week, I'll check in and say, okay, so by Friday, what we had on the draw schedule was to complete blah, blah, blah. How is everything looking? And the contractor might say, okay, well, we're on track for this. We're on track on that. This is only going to be about 50% done, but we did end up getting something else done later in the week that will be done by Friday. Okay, cool. So I'm going to order the inspector now for Friday at 6 p.m. or Saturday morning at 9 a.m., whatever, something that's going to be after the work is done, but as quickly as possible. But I got to, plan that out in advance. And so I'm letting the contractor know, like, I'm going to have someone inspect. That alone will increase the likelihood that they're actually going to get the work done and done correctly, because they know someone's going to be looking at it. And I tell them it's the home inspector. So they know the home inspectors are pretty diligent about that kind of thing. All right. So Friday, let's say Friday at 6 o'clock, my home inspector goes out and he says, okay. And I say, these are the 4 things that are supposed to be done. These 3 things should be completely done. This 1 thing should be about 50% done. And I need to verify that, make sure it's correct before I release the funds. So home inspector goes out, basically confirms, yes, this is done. This is done. This is about 50% done. And the 4th thing is not completely done. It's about 50% done also. So at that point, I'm going to go back to my contractor and say, okay, this is the report I received. So I will pay you out for this thing. I'll pay you out for this thing. I'll give you 50% for this line item because it's 50% done. And this line item you said was going to be done, but I was told it's not done. it would be pretty odd for the contractor to argue with you at that point because the home inspector has just gone out. So, but whatever you'd say, I will pay you for 50% of that line item because that's what's done. All right, so you're just checking in, and then you do the wire transfer immediately or right away. Like, that's the thing, is if you're going to do it this way, your part in it is making sure it happens swiftly and quickly so that they're getting paid regularly, because typically contractors will ask for money in advance and most people will just pay it. But a lot of those people end up getting ripped off, and that's not what I want you to do. And it's just a terrible feeling. And if you had it happen to you, don't want to have that happen again. That's the way you can operate to mitigate the risk of sending out money and having that money like just take off. So one other thing you can do, because sometimes what happens is the contractor will say, well, I need money for supplies. Well, a lot of contractors should be far enough along in business that they have trade lines that they don't have to pay for stuff in advance. They can go get it on their trade line. But let's just say they either don't have it, or they're saying, no, I don't want to front that. I don't want to put materials in your house without paying. Okay, I can understand that. You still can't send the money without it being at risk. So here's what you can do. I never like to just say no without offering like an alternative, like, oh, I can't do that, but here's what I could do. And, put it in a light to try to show like, look, I'm trying to work it out too. So if they need to order supplies and they don't have the ability to make that happen without you sending money, you can say, well, here's what I can do. Go ahead and place the order with the supplier. I will call in to the supplier and I will pay with my credit card. And then you can pick up the supplies. Okay, that's it. That's the only acceptable way to do it that doesn't put your money at risk. When you send liquid cash is very easy to run away or to be used on someone else's job if they're finishing up another job, right? It's unfortunately a fairly common thing to have you got to rob Peter to pay Paul kind of thing. So they might use money from your rehab to fund one of their other rehabs that they mismanaged or they went off budget on. So you have to do things that help keep you safe in that. And one of those things could be you just pay for the supplies directly to the supplier. So the other thing is, I'm not saying that there's zero risk in that, because the contractor go and take the supplies and go leave with them. Yeah, but it's not liquid cash. It's a lot more difficult to actually make that happen in any kind of, financially viable way for them. So it puts that kind of a blocker there. If the contractor tried to take those supplies and return them to the supplier and get cash, if you paid with a credit card, the supplier is not going to do that because they would only be able to refund the card. And if they paid cash and you did a chargeback on it, like they're in trouble. So they will only refund the card generally. So it just puts an extra layer of protection in there. So if your contractor's like, well, I have to get paid a deposit because I need supplies, that's your way around it. Other than that, you just tell them like, look, I can't pay in advance. My board of directors doesn't allow that as an absolute no exception rule, but we'll pay you every week based on what's done and inspected and verified. So, let's go. And if they're not okay with that, frankly, you really can't do much with that without putting yourself at risk. So if you send 30% in advance of the job, 30% of the job is what you're risking. Like you're risking dollar for dollar on that. So anyway, I hope that gives you some ideas. So when you're rehabbing, because you really want to be able to rehab wherever it makes sense, right? I want to live in one place, but I want to do real estate where it makes sense. Well, I have to be able to do that without being there. And so I'm putting a lot of things in place, but frankly, even if it was the house next door, I should still do the same thing. What does my eyes being on the project have anything to do with it being done right? I don't know what I'm looking at. I mean, I have an idea, but it's not gonna be too hard to pull one over on me. I'm not a licensed contractor, right? But it's very difficult to pull one over on a licensed home inspector. So anyway, I hope that's helpful to you. If you're writing in the comments, I'm actually doing this through Zoom right now, so I can't see the comments, but I'll go check later, see if there's any questions. Remember that tomorrow we're doing the live at 5 with Jen and I, and that's 5 p.m. Pacific. So if you have any questions or you want to just jump on, it's kind of an open forum we talk about what's going on with our mastermind and our students. We had a couple of really cool things that came up in our mastermind call today that I'll be getting to talk about tomorrow. And we're happy to answer any questions you have about your real estate deals, and we'll go from there. So anyway, have an amazing Tuesday evening, and we'll see you tomorrow. Have a good one.